Let's get into it today. We're going deep on George Hotz.
Hot.
Yeah, better known as Hot, right? Like the guy who cracked the iPhone way back when.
Yeah.
But he's done a lot more since then, and it kind of makes you wonder, is this guy like a real tech visionary or just a really, really good self-promoter?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, grifter or gifted? That's what we're trying to figure out.
Right.
We've got a lot of stuff to go through here.
Yeah.
Articles, Wikipedia, tons of articles, Wired, BBC, Benzinga, even a Kotaku deep dive.
Nice.
And I even pulled up some like old memories,
Oh, wow.
those early days of iPhone jailbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
So think back to that time. Like, do you remember
Yeah.
buzz around jailbreaking?
I do. It was a huge,
Yeah.
it was a cultural moment for sure.
Yeah, you were either in it or you weren't.
Yeah.
But it felt like this huge cultural shift.
Probably.
Like people just wanted control over their devices.
Yeah.
And they were pushing back against like that walled garden that Apple had created.
It was like it was a control thing, right? It was beyond just like the technical aspects of it.
Yeah.
It was like this like push and pull over like, who owns this device? How much power should I have over it?
Yeah. And right at the center of it all was this like teenage prodigy programming at 5 years old, building his own gaming console in like 5th grade.
What?
It's crazy if you read about it on thefamouspeople.com. It's pretty wild.
Wow.
And then boom, at 17, he unlocks the iPhone.
Huge.
Becomes this global sensation.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember those early iPhones?
Oh, yeah.
Locked to AT&T.
Yeah.
He cracked it open for the world.
Yep.
Wired covered that whole thing pretty extensively back in 2009.
It was like a statement. It wasn't just the technical achievement. It was like he was taking on this giant, challenging the whole system, and people loved it.
They loved him for it.
Yeah.
And it was like this constant back and forth, too.
Oh, totally.
Every time Apple tried to patch a vulnerability, he'd find a new way in. Him and this whole, like, jailbreaking community, it was like this high-stakes game of cat and mouse.
Yeah, constant.
Wired documented that whole saga. It's really interesting.
Yeah. And you can really see that, like, rebellious streak with him.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout his whole career, he's drawn to, like, pushing boundaries.
Yeah.
Challenging authority.
Absolutely. And that's never more apparent than in that whole showdown with Sony.
Oh, yeah.
You remember this?
Big time.
Hacks the PlayStation 3, releases the exploit to the public, and Sony comes down on him. Like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
We've got coverage of that whole legal battle from Kotaku and Wikipedia.
Wow.
It was wild.
So what happened?
Well, Sony claimed it was a security risk, of course, right?
Right.
His supporters are crying censorship. It was a huge debate.
Yeah, what side were you on?
I know, right? It was like a real David versus Goliath situation.
Totally.
And Hotz even released this, like, diss track about Sony.
No way.
Calling their legal threats a disaster.
Oh, wow.
You can find it on his Wikipedia page if you're curious.
I am.
But
he did not back down.
No, he did not. And that just, like, fueled this image of him as this renegade hacker.
Right.
You know, like thumbing his nose at these corporate giants.
Totally.
But did he ever, like, express any remorse for what happened?
That's a good question.
Like, what could have happened? Because Kotaku's deep dive brings up a really interesting point.
What's that?
Did his hack unintentionally pave the way for that huge data theft on the PlayStation Network a few months later?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was big.
It's a question that still lingers, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, Sony admitted that they knew about security issues for days before the breach became public.
Really?
According to Kotaku.
Wow.
So is Hotz like a scapegoat?
Right.
Or did his actions have like unintended consequences?
It's hard to say.
Yeah, and he never admitted any wrongdoing even after settling with Sony,
Ah.
according to Wikipedia.
Ah.
So it makes you wonder about his motivations, right? Is he driven by this desire to improve things?
Right.
Or is it more about the challenge, the thrill of the hack, the notoriety that comes with it?
The fame.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy.
He's a puzzle.
Yeah.
So after the Sony drama, he has this brief stint at Facebook.
Okay.
Continues working on Android rooting.
Mm-hmm.
Even published a root exploit for Samsung Galaxy S5 devices.
Oh, wow.
You can find the details on that on Wikipedia.
Okay.
But this is where we start to see a shift, right?
Okay.
It's not just about exploiting vulnerabilities anymore.
Yeah.
He's starting to build things, create solutions, and that kind of foreshadows his move into like the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of which, let's talk about Comma.ai, a self-driving car startup.
Okay.
He claimed they were building technology that could rival, maybe even surpass Tesla.
Really?
Yeah, you can read about it on thefamouspeople.com and Wikipedia.
Ambitious.
Very ambitious. Talk about aiming high, right?
Yeah, especially, I mean, you think about it, right? This is a crowded space.
Yeah.
You've got Google, you've got Uber.
Like Tesla.
All these big players already making moves.
Right.
So how's this little startup going to compete?
Right. And what was his approach?
Well, he was a big believer in open source technology.
Okay.
He kind of saw Tesla's approach, all this secrecy, as like a roadblock to progress.
Right.
He wanted to like democratize the technology, make it accessible
Well,
to everyone.
just kind of where that whole clash with Elon Musk comes in, right?
Oh, absolutely. Peak Hotz drama right there.
So what happened there?
So according to Wikipedia,
Yeah.
Musk offered him this like lucrative deal to work at Tesla.
Right.
He turns it down.
Yep.
And then proceeds to like publicly bash Musk's whole approach to self-driving.
Saying that he relied too much on expensive hardware,
Yeah.
that he was overhyping Tesla's capabilities, all that.
The whole 9 yards.
Was he right?
It's tough to say. I mean, some people saw it as arrogance. Others saw it as like a principled stand against like a flawed approach.
Interesting.
But one thing's for sure, it put Comma.ai on the map.
Yeah, good publicity, bad publicity people were talking.
Exactly.
It definitely fits his pattern of challenging the status quo.
Totally.
So did they deliver? Did Comma.ai live up to the hype?
Well, not really.
Okay.
They did eventually launch a driver assistance device called the Comma 2 back in 2020.
Okay.
You can read about it on Wikipedia.
Okay, so not full self-driving.
No, not even close.
Yeah.
And even that ran into some regulatory hurdles.
Really?
Yeah. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration had some concerns about its safety, demanded more information from Comma.ai.
Okay. Understandable, I guess.
I mean, this is a lot more complicated
Yeah.
than hacking a phone or a game console.
For sure.
The stakes are way higher, the technology is more complex,
Yeah.
and you've got this whole regulatory minefield to navigate.
Exactly. Even companies like Tesla, with all the resources, have had their issues.
Big time.
So what happened with Comma.ai is Hotz still running it.
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Yes.
In late 2022, he announces that he's stepping down as CEO.
Just like that.
Yeah.
After all that.
Yeah, he said he was burned out and wanted to focus on other things.
Other things.
Other projects.
And like right around the same time.
Yeah.
He gets hired by, get this, Elon Musk.
What?
For a 12-week internship at Twitter.
No way, seriously?
Yeah.
The guy he was just publicly feuding with?
Right.
Is now his boss.
Even if it's temporary.
Wow, talk about a plot twist.
So did he actually do it?
Yeah, he did the internship. Well, you can find the details on Wikipedia and thefamouspeople.com.
Okay.
But long story short, it doesn't sound like it went very well.
What happened?
He left after 5 weeks.
5 weeks out of 12.
Yeah, he claimed he couldn't make a real impact in that short amount of time.
Wow, so is this guy just like spreading himself too thin?
It's possible. I mean, jumping from one project to the next.
Right.
Maybe it's lack of focus.
Right.
Or maybe it's that like restless energy we've seen in him.
Yeah.
This is the guy who got bored with traditional education.
Right.
Basically self-taught from a young age.
Yeah.
Maybe he just thrives on new challenges.
Needs constant stimulation. And that brings us to his newest thing, right?
Yeah.
Tiny Corp.
Tiny Corp.
It seems like he's kind of going back to his roots with this one.
In a way.
Focusing on building machine learning hardware.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, Tiny Corp is all about creating computers specifically for AI.
So still ambitious.
Oh, yeah, always.
I mean, they've already gotten like $5 million in funding.
Yeah, so not so tiny anymore.
Right.
He's definitely not afraid to think big.
Definitely not.
It'll be really interesting to see if this is the one that really grabs him.
Yeah.
For the long haul.
Right. Will Tiny Corp succeed where Comma.ai maybe didn't?
Yeah, we'll have to see.
So after all of this, right?
Yeah.
What's the verdict?
The big question.
Is George Hotz a visionary or just a really, really good self-promoter?
It's tough.
Grifter or gifted?
I mean, he's brilliant. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Super talented.
Right.
But there's also this undeniable showmanship.
Yeah. He kind of loves the spotlight.
He does.
And the controversy.
For sure.
I mean, he's built companies. He's challenged these huge tech giants.
Yeah.
And just left this trail of disruption everywhere he goes.
And he's still young.
That's true.
Who knows what he's going to do next?
It's what makes him so interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it keeps us guessing.
Keeps us on our toes.
Keeps us on the edge of our seats, for sure.
Yeah, he's a constant reminder that that line between genius and troublemaker, it can be pretty thin.
Yeah, and in the tech world where everything's moving so fast, maybe you need a little bit of both.
Maybe.
To really make an impact.
Could be.
So what do you think?
Yeah.
Where do you land on this whole George Hotz spectrum?
Yeah. Are you team grifter or are you team gifted?
Is he changing the world or just playing the game?
It's a good question.
Yeah. It's something to think about. We'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah. Let us know.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Into the world of the enigmatic George Hotz.
He's a fascinating guy.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.
See